And we're back. Quick question before we take a look at the pictures. At what point did it hit you? And it had to hit all three of you, maybe not at the same time, but at what point did it hit you, oh Lord, what have I done before the climb? It had, I mean, when you looked up there at this mountain.
The signs to the entrance. It's all these warnings. Have you seen your doctor? Are you in good enough physical condition? People have died on this mountain. And when you see it, I mean, yeah, you intellectually talk about it in that internal talk, but when you're reading the sign and you've got your gaiters and your day pack on and your walking sticks and you're about ready to launch through the gate, it's like, whoo, boom. Should I really be doing this?
Well, there was one more thing I wanted to bring out too. There was a member of your party that almost met the end on this climb. Am I correct? Fellow that had the diabetic reaction?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very scary. We waited for him at the top. He was kind of like a guy running out of gas at the very end. Of course, we were all out of gas, but we waited for him at the top probably longer. You know, you're at 19,000 feet, so you can't stay up there very long. Yeah. You're really depriving yourself of oxygen at that point. And but we waited longer than we should have so that he could get up there, and then so we were all anxious to get back down. Everybody scooted back down except really Randy and I. And I looked around. And I thought, where is he? And I went back to check on him, and he was sitting on a rock and was really pretty incoherent. His sugar level had gone down to nothing, and so fed him everything we had in my backpack and all the water that we had left and so forth. And two of the porters grabbed him and rushed him down the mountain. But it
probably saved his life.
It was very scary, and he had quite an ordeal to get on down the mountain from there.
Well, I'll tell you what, these gentlemen brought some pictures that we want to share with you. And fellas, if you will, as they roll, don't stand on formality. Chime in and tell us what we're seeing. If we could roll the video and you folks at home take a look. There you are.
In the beginning, you have this nice paved, and this is what you see on all the pictures. You have this nice paved path, and you think, oh, this looks like it's going to be pretty easy.
Gorgeous picture.
Yeah, that is just amazing. You feel like you can stand up and reach the Milky Way and bring it down. It's just, it's absolutely unbelievable.
The stars are just immense. There were 16 of us that went. 14 made the summit. We had some really colorful pictures. Some guys here.
Don, did you take all of these pictures?
I think 90% of them, yes.
Okay.
So far, yes.
There's Tom. Yeah.
This is Randy Cowell. He was the one that had trouble on the mountain at the top.
But he's okay now.
He's fine, yes.
There's me. Yeah. Oh, man.
Made it.
I remember that day, man.
Was it uncomfortably cold?
It wasn't horribly. We had really good weather, but it sure can be. And you go through 5 climate zones, so you start off like 70 degrees, and that may be 0 or lower at the top.
At this point, you're above the clouds.
That is the most amazing thing for me, is waking up and beginning the climb for the next day above the clouds. Because every other time I've been above the clouds has been in a jet, right?
Yeah.
And now you're waking up and you're above the cloud level, and it's just, it's very ethereal, very spiritual.
Is that the target behind you?
Yes.
Yep.
I even took that one. That was a selfie with a DSLR.
Selfie.
Oh,
That's what I mean about being above the cloud
You
line.
feel like you could just step off on those clouds.
That was day 5, right, I think? The morning of day 5.
Yeah, day morning. Morning of the ascent.
As you can see, there's not much. Once you get up there, it's almost like the moonscape. There's nothing that's going to grow up there.
it had to be the kind of thing that the higher you went, the shorter your steps. Am I reading that correctly?
We were literally right behind each other, taking little tiny 6-inch steps.
This is climbing the Bronco Wall. This, you've given your walking poles to the guides and you're actually hand over hand. For me, it was one of the highlights of the trip because it was the fulfillment of a boyhood dream come true.
It would seem to me that an unbreakable bond has been established between all of you.
Yeah.
And that's the sign you were talking about earlier, Tim.
Yeah.
But if that bond exists, then can we expect more adventures out of this group?
I don't know.
We were talking about that on the way over here. Do we have the gumption to do it?
Don't tell our wives, but
Depends how long the trip home on the truck after this is tonight, yeah?
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, there are For example, mountain hikes that you can take.
Sure.
Right.
But something happens. When you could pull a team together and something happens to bond those men together. And I think as men, we long for those kinds of things. And 16 of us came together from all over. We didn't know each other necessarily, but we quickly came together, worked as a team. 14 of us made it to the summit. But I just can't tell you enough that God showed up.
Has to be a curious point to me, though. While you were trekking around on the other side of the globe, trying to get to the top of the mountain, back home, were the wives bonding? Were they coming together as a group?
I think maybe a couple of them did.
And a few phone calls, but it was kind of like, I wonder what hubby's doing today, right? And I mean, really, there were days I just said, just help me make it one more day, Lord. Because it was a physical challenge that became a mental challenge, all wrapped around in a spiritual experience that is hard to put your arms around. But there was days that I thought, whoa, I am in way, way over my head, and I kept thinking in the back of my head, I can turn around, but the guy in front of me was taking one more step, and I couldn't look at the top anymore, because every time I looked at the top, it said, I'll never make it. So I just said, okay, I'm going to follow the butt and the ankles of the guy in front of me, and if this guy and this guy can take one more step, I can too.
Well, now, Don, you had, I won't say it's a disadvantage, but you had to work harder than everybody else, because you guys all have to carry your own personal gear, but you also had to carry the cameras and the recording equipment. How did that work out?
Not horribly well. Can we just state it that way? No, it did. It worked out well. I did have to sacrifice carrying some of the stuff I needed to carry for myself so that I could carry the gear that I wanted. I did carry, I think I carried too much gear. To do it again, and perhaps when I do it again, I'll gear it a little differently, but I carried 3 bodies and 3 lenses and redundancy and everything, because I didn't know what was going to break down, what the temperature was going to do to it, et cetera, et cetera. So it did end up being very heavy and bulky to carry all that around. Became a factor a little bit.
Wasn't there a fall? Were you the one that had the fall coming back down?
Well, I didn't know you knew about that. I mean, we all sort of.
Everybody
I'm not sure I had the
falls.
significant one. I know Tom hurt his wrist. Was it your wrist?
I did have.
What about a 10-foot fall?
After Randy had gone on down the mountain, and I was in the porters had gone down. I was the last one down there, and I couldn't keep up with them, and so I was really the last on the mountain. And at that point, I fell down this kind of 12-foot embankment and landed on the middle of my back. And it was really then when I decided, maybe Mom and Dad weren't so dumb and telling me not to do this. But anyway, I was able to shake it off and was okay.
Well, considering it was the prior injury.
Yes, because of my spinal injury, I had laying there thinking, man, I have really, really messed up. And at that point, I thought I'd broken my wrist. And then there were some other falls in trying to get on down the mountain.
All of this begs the question, would you do it again?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
If my kids, there was a guy who walked it with his daughter, and you run into different groups, and depending on how fast you're moving up, there are people that kind of stay your pace, right? And I went up and congratulated them when we made it down, and I said, well, that's quite an accomplishment. And he said, well, I've done it before. And I was like, you have? And he said, yeah, the first time I did it with my son. So he climbed first with his son and then second with his daughter, and I thought, wow, what a great experience.
No kidding.
Because it does bond you. You realize I need you and you need me, because things could happen on the mountain. And they can whisk you down they bind you up and put you on a stretcher that's got this mountain tire and shocks on the bottom of it. But all they really can do is get you down to help.
Okay,
right?
Silly question time. When you're in a maneuver such as this, and you're almost there, you have to eat what you brought, which is not always right out of the fridge. Were there food cravings? And were those cravings magnified by the lack of oxygen? We got about a minute.
The crew cooked for us. They did a good job. So we didn't have to worry about that. We just carried our backpack and the snacks for the day.
Mm-hmm.
But they did their best to cook us a hearty meal every night. It got to be
A lot of carbs.
a lot of carbs.
Yeah. Well, I'd have been looking for McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah. But quite frankly, you're at the high altitude. You're dealing with that. You're really not very hungry.
You got to force yourself to eat.
I couldn't keep food down, and so I had a problem. My body ate myself. Myself ate my own body.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry
Not
to do
enough
this.
food.
We're out of time. I would love to see the finished video when it's done. As a matter of fact, any chance we could air it here?
Well, I don't know. There's a possibility, yes.
Let's talk about that, all right?
All right, good.
We're out of time. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being a
pleasure,
part
man.
of today and sharing your experience. We'll see you back next time. Thanks for joining us. I would love to share your video. I think it'd be terrific.